Let's get to know each other outside of Uber.
Let's do it.
Well, nice to see you. Fun to put this together.
Yeah, I think so too. If you want to kind of just introduce yourself and then just talk a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it and just a little bit about your background.
Okay, hi. I'm Cindy Finch. I'm a therapist and an author. And it's Saturday morning and I'm not all like bright and fresh in my professional mode, but I think that's okay. Yeah, here we are. I write about relationships and everything related to how people connect. So that's the work that I do.
That's awesome. How long have you been doing that?
Probably about 13 years. I've been in this field. I came from healthcare. I used to be a hospital social worker at Mayo Clinic, and
oh wow,
that was interesting, good work. I started every day in the ICU with people at the very worst days of their lives.
Wow,
really interesting work.
That's interesting. I actually came from healthcare also. I started off doing food, like serving and cooking, and then eventually I got into admissions, and I was working with like the elderly, like dementia care and stuff like that. I was the sales and marketing part of it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so but the interesting way of how I got into, podcasting, and it's awesome that you wrote a book. I saw that you wrote a book, and I want to get into writing as well. I'm finishing a book now. What got me into what I'm doing now is, a lot of people come to me for advice, they still do.
Yeah.
For, marital advice, dating advice, relationship advice. And I always felt like, well, if people are coming to me on a personal scale, I could also help people as much as I can on a wider scale. So yeah, so that's kind of how that started with Elevated Minds. But I talk about relationships and health, wealth, all those different types of things that can help everybody.
Oh, I saw. You have a lot of different content that you're putting out there to help people. How old are you?
I'm 32.
32. Nice. And you're out here making a difference and helping people. What do you think is like the number one thing people ask about? They ask you about for help?
I'll say I get a lot of people asking me really how to communicate, like how to communicate with someone when there's an issue. I notice a lot of people come to me, and a lot of times the issues are boundaries. Like a lot of times people don't know how to set boundaries, and a lot of people don't know how to communicate in a way to where they're going to be able to get their point across, but not have it to where it seems like you're attacking the other person, like you did this, and you did that. And
Right.
I try to let people know it's like talking about how you feel about it. It's like, I feel that this is what's happening, or I feel like this when this happens, and that way it doesn't like push it on the other person. You're just telling how it makes you feel when these things happen. So yeah, I see that that's kind of a big thing that, when people come to me, that's kind of like one of the general.
Yeah. Relationships are hard, man. They're tricky. People are squirrely, they have a lot of emotions and they have a lot of beliefs about how things should be going and what the other person should be doing. And it's really kind of complex, and it all happens so fast that we don't see the stuff firing off.
Right.
Or it's on the inside and it's just like getting more and more intense.
Yeah. I definitely know. What's something that you normally see when you're counseling and things like that? What's one of the most common issues that come up with relationships?
Lately, like maybe the last 5 years, I have for some reason had a total influx of older dudes.
Really?
Okay, so guys 55 and older that come in and talk to me. And I think Darren and I were just talking about this morning. They are like crushing it at work. They've raised a family. They've, maybe saved and had the money or the house they want. And like they've gone to school and did their accomplishments, but they're not closely connected with their partner. And don't have a really strong relationship with their children because they prioritized maybe money, intellect, physicality over emotion, spiritual love, relationships.
Right.
Now in this kind of last third of life, if you will, they don't have it. And they're really distressed that they prioritized their money over their love.
Right.
Yeah, and they kind of want to unring the bell a little bit, and it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I can only imagine, as it's interesting because I think nowadays I'm seeing a lot of women talk about how they want someone to provide, and they want, the financial. But then you hear like things like this when the guys are prioritizing the money and not so much the relationship, then you see that issue there, because then that kind of creates that disconnect. So it's interesting to see you can still have issues even if they're providing. I mean, you still have to wanting to make sure that you're paying attention to your partner and connecting with your partner, and date nights. That's one thing I talk about is dating. Because you can't stop dating once you're with your.
But everybody does once those kids come along, and once all the bills pile up. It's so hard. I think there's a myth among men, and maybe you can confirm this for me, that you sort of equal whatever your bank account says, or that your job is somehow your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. Like with women, we're fed the messaging that how I look, what my body type is, if I can have children, if I'm attractive, like those are all things about me that somehow define myself, me.
Right.
That's my identity, and I need to focus on that. But it kind of like, well, what happens when your bank account isn't up to snuff, or you don't look your best, or you're not playing these roles and expectations? And then what? Who are you then?
Right.
Big question.
That's another episode I had before. I run into a lot of men that say, I've got this, I make this much money, my business generates me this much money, and this, and this, but they're still having trouble with finding love or connection. And, a lot of times a lot of people feel like the money is what, creates your identity. And that's, without the money, you don't have any sense of worth. But it's like, you got to have that internal dialogue with yourself. You have to have that internal love and self-love for yourself and worth, to know that if you lost it all, you're still going to be, you're still going to be a man of integrity. You're still going to be a man of a good heart,
Well, you have that though, right? You have that, because I know when I met you, I'm like, that's a good man right there. That is a good young man. No, I'm serious. You have that where you were like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm working like this, but I'm working on that. And you're open. And so you have that essence, I think, going back to us working in healthcare, when I meet people on the worst day of their life, where I used to,
mm-hmm.
if they don't have that centered, stable place inside of them, which by the way, a lot of people don't have, they're actually just kind of shells of people, because they work so hard on the external, trying to look cute or trying to look successful or whatever, that they haven't developed their inner world. So then it's kind of like a house of cards. Very interesting, because that internal strength, prioritization, stability, whatever you want to call it, there's probably a good word for it. I probably haven't had enough caffeine. There's probably a proper word, but like who you are on the inside, if they haven't done the inward journey, they're kind of SOL, and they're going to get really crushed by life until life forces their hand to bring up some kind of internal strength, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see. And you know what? That's kind of also an unfortunate reality. Like, I used to have a pastor that would say, everybody's going to be in the emergency room of life at some point. And if it's not you right now, it's coming. And you need to be ready to know what to do.
Absolutely.
And it's like, he's right. He's right.
It's so true. I actually see that a lot. There's a lot of people that they're going through so much. They have so much going on inside. They have so much anxiety. And a lot of times I feel like people aren't really being true to themselves. And I feel like I've gone through a lot of things, and I think the things that I've gone through, I didn't allow it to break me. I allowed it to mold me and help me to grow spiritually, emotionally.
You bend, not break. That's what I hear. You bend, not break.
Exactly.
Especially with your neighbors that are loud and fighting. Remember you were telling me about your lesbian neighbor.
Yeah, that's right.
We were fighting. Okay. Sorry.
No, but
No, but I remember you lived in Florida, your family's out there, you're out here on your own, right? So you have to develop that internal grit, like that resilience or that ability to be the plant that grows beneath the cement and comes up through the cracks, right?
Yes.
Well, I call that post-traumatic growth, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Trauma. Yeah, after my trauma, rather than just PTSD or just some kind of breaking life experience, I actually experienced growth as a result of all the pressure, right?
Yeah.
That it moves me into some kind of next level. That's what I love to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really, like you said that so perfectly. I feel like, moving over here, I didn't have anything to fall back on. It was like, you're forced to look at yourself. You're forced.
I hate that shit.
I
hate that shit.
I know.
Sorry, can I swear?
No, it's okay. It's cool. That's fine. Everyone should go through that and really see what they can get out of that. There's one of my favorite rappers. His name is J. Cole. And one line he said is, "There's beauty in the struggle," and I really resonate with that because going through so many struggles like that I was able to learn what I needed to learn. You never stop learning. It's life is a process. But
trust me, I am 23 years older than you, and let me just confirm, you never stop learning, because every day you're like, dang, shit, I thought I was there, and then it's like this whole other level opens up, and you're like, now I'm a newbie on this other level. I'm not like the big fish in the little pond, because now the pond has gotten bigger.
Yeah, exactly. I move on to an ocean.
Yeah, right? That's what I hope you get to do with your podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I've been working at it for 1 year so far. So
nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a good question for you. I know we're going to talk about what men and women want in relationships and what they need and what makes relationships last. What would you say makes a relationship healthy?
I think empathy. If I can see what my person is saying from their perspective and be able to allow myself to enter into why they would think this way, feel this way, all of a sudden I've pivoted my point of view over to their side. And just for a moment, I can take like a snapshot and go, oh, I kind of, given all the givens, I can see why you're in this place. So because now all of a sudden your experience is real to me, I can meet you there, or you can meet me there.
Right.
And we can problem solve, and we can understand, and we can connect. One of a famous therapist named Esther, Saturday morning, I forgot her last name, Esther Perel. She said the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. So if you're going to want like a life worth living, a high touch, highly satisfying relationship or life, you gotta focus on your relationships. And so I would say a key part of that is having empathy, being able to understand your partner's perspective, and then validate it. Like, not just see, okay, so let's say he, comes from a background of abuse or deprivation, or, has a hair trigger kind of like anger problem. Like when you look at given all the givens that they've been through, it makes sense to me on some level,
right?
Why that's true, why they're like that, so that I get out of defensiveness or trying to prove my point or make them wrong, into more problem solving, moving forward, staying connected in a healthy way. That's what I would say.
I like that. And I 1000% agree, because I feel like a lot of times in relationships, people are pointing fingers, and they're not able to see or feel what the other person is feeling or seeing, and in their perspective. And so I definitely agree with that. I feel like if people could understand and put themselves in their shoes, because a lot of times the reality that we see, we think that everybody sees in our same reality, and we feel that.
Oh, right? I have so many people that tell me, well, I'm mad that she did that to me. I would never do that to her. And I'm like, okay, well, there's your problem right there. You are assuming that everybody is playing by the rule book that's in your head. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they break your unspoken rule that we didn't even know you had, because you have this whole belief system about life, they're in trouble with you. Mm-hmm. And they don't even know, because you're saying, I would never have done that to them. Okay, but not everybody lives and walks and breathes by our rule book.
Exactly.
And so being able to get out and see a different perspective. And then I think, building a culture of appreciation for each other. And that means minimizing like defensiveness and being overly critical or controlling. Like those things need to come down. And it's hard because those are defenses.
Right.
But then elevating a culture of appreciation, validation, and then a priority on the relationship itself.
Yes.
Like we told our kids growing up, like, we love you, but your mom or your dad is my favorite person. So your needs are going to be met, but don't ever think for a minute that this marriage is somehow subjected to you guys. This marriage existed. We existed as a family, the two of us on our own, and then y'all came along.
Right.
And so prioritizing that relationship, and you met Darren, and he's like my favorite person in the world, and we've been through some shit.
Yeah.
Together, some shit. And he's like, our motto, I'll just tell you what it is. Neither of us, we've decided to not quit on the same day. Like, if we feel like quitting this, fine. Just like, we can't decide that on the same day. So if one of us is going to quit, all right, fine. Like, let's go to bed and get a reset. And hopefully we like each other tomorrow or next week. But if we both want to quit on the same day,
right.
Try to stay off of, I'm out. Me too.
Yeah.
We've been married 25 years. We're working on it.
I've talked with a lot of people that have, had long-term marriages, and they all say something along the same lines of that. They always say, there's some days you're gonna not get along. There's some days you're not gonna agree on things, but it's like that. Like, I think they were saying something like along the lines of, one day this person might be like able to give 20%, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and their partner is going to have to carry the other 80%. And then there's going to be times where it's the other way. And that really resonated with me because, I think a lot of times people look at long-term marriages and relationships like, oh, it's going to be flowers and rainbows and perfect, all the time. And, but there's going to be hardships. There's always going to be those hardships. But I think, like you're saying, if we can prioritize appreciation, I think that's huge. I mean, a lot of people don't appreciate each other. It's something that seems so small and minute, but when I feel it, I know how I feel when I feel appreciated. I want to do more. I want to continue to do things, because when you do something for someone and they're just like, they feel like they're just entitled to it, or, you don't sense any type of,
or they criticized you or blamed you into it.
Exactly.
There's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm a 4-year-old child with a punishing parent doing things just so they don't get mad at me. And that's a whole different like jam in relationships, where I highly suggest you interrupt that pattern if that's occurring, because that is a toxic. When I'm just doing something to get you off my back, or to just stop you nagging, or trying to prevent you from finding something out, or getting in trouble, or being criticized or blamed by you, that's like the wrong motivation, right? To kill the dog, rather than like, hey, I have a high amount of respect for you. We're deeply connected. You're my person. And yeah, I'm gonna do that. It's a very different energy flow with a couple.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And since you mentioned toxic, I kind of want to go into that too. So what do you think makes a relationship toxic?
It's the people for sure. Like their belief systems, their expectations. Yeah, like if I expect that, well, going back to what you said, which was so important earlier, like if somebody's expecting something, like, I don't know, let's have an example. Okay, I have a client they have everything in the world. Let me tell you that financially, they have everything in the world. And his wife is an alcoholic. And he has a strong expectation that she should not be an alcoholic. Right. And so that creates, and I mean, I get that, right? I'm not trying to say, of course, she can be an alcoholic. Just let her do whatever she wants. She can just wreak havoc in your life. I'm not saying that. But he tried to foolproof life in every way possible, financially, intellectually, success, all of these things. And what turns up is under his own roof, he has a person who's out of control, right? That their behaviors, their choices, their safety, their physicality, their judgment, their behavior, their money, because that's how alcoholism is, right? Any kind of addiction, it just spreads to every area of life. And his expectation is because he set the perfect stage for their family. It's kind of the picture perfect family. Right. She's messing it up. He has like hostility toward her because he did his part. Why isn't she doing her part? So that's what I would say can make something toxic. Now, toxic versus just conflict. We all have conflict. We all have shit shows behind the scenes. Exactly. But I think toxic is like an ongoing pattern of negativity, hostility, contempt, manipulation, control, abuse, neglect. I have some folks that I work with, Jalen, that are like, they do the bare minimum in a relationship just so that person doesn't divorce them. Their partner may have 100 needs and they'll just give that little. And then it's sort of like this really anorexic, really near-death kind of relationship. And they look at their partner and they're like, what? I did that one thing that one time. Why aren't you ever happy? It's like, yeah. There's a whole other way to live. There's a whole other way to be, right? So anyway, I guess that's my long answer. I like that answer. I just feel like a lot of people don't realize, relationships are about giving. And, a lot of people are just, I talk about that a lot. People are just trying to see what they can get out of people a lot of times. So if everyone kind of focused on being able to give, meet the other person's needs by giving, just keep giving. If both people but what about you in that? What about you? Talk to me. If you're just going to keep giving, like, also what's in that for you? Right. No, that's true. Where's the balance? So in that sense, because I'll say this, I used to be a person that would give too much all the night in relationships. I would just give. That was my whole first marriage. Just giving. Did all through my 20s, just whatever I need to do to take care of how it be. That thing crashed and burned. Right. So one thing I learned, because I was married actually once when I was really young, like 20, and that was me. I got married at 20. Like what? Wow. That's why we know each other. Exactly. We're like, I kind of failed my way through my 20s. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. Ooh. Yeah, like that's what I realized when I was in my first marriage. I was always trying to make the peace and all this stuff, and I gave to a fault, and I realized there were times I needed to say no. There was times I needed to put my foot down. There was times I needed to put myself first, to prioritize my own needs. Self-care, self-respect. Yes. Like, if I don't do that, how are they going to know? And then all of a sudden I hate them because they're taking so much, and they resent me because I made myself out to be like this person that was just going to be all love, like unconditional, and that's not good for anybody except between you and God, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's a 100% give,
yeah,
because who's doing that for me then? If I'm doing that for everybody else, yeah.
Right. I think it would only work if it's going back and forth, like it's a reciprocation, like I'm giving and they're giving as well. But if that's not like, and that's what I had to learn how to identify. Like if I'm giving and this other person's not giving, then okay, I gotta analyze this. All right, I'm putting all my energy and efforts and time into this person and they're not putting anything back, or if they are, kind of like you were saying, they give crumbs just to keep your interest. And now I can identify that because I had that same problem for so long and I carried that issue into so many different relationships. And then I realized, okay,
you're like, oh, it's me.
It's me.
I hate when I realize, oh shoot, I'm the common denominator in all these problems I'm complaining about. It's me.
Literally.
Oh, snap.
I know. It was a rude awakening.
I'm not gonna lie, I hate that shit. I hate that.
You and me both. It's like
yes.
It hits you in the face and it's like, damn, it's me. And so when I had that really big realization, and it didn't happen until after I got into this really toxic relationship with someone. And when I finally picking up the pieces after this broken, after I was broken after this relationship, I had to I did some shadow work and learned like the pieces of me that I needed to work on and the things that were causing. I'm like, okay, if this is happening in this many relationships, then that means there's something that I'm doing. And then that's when I can go back and see the times where I'm like, oh, in this moment I should have stuck up for myself. Oh, in this moment I should have said no. Oh, in this moment I should have put up a boundary. And once I started to realize, oh, this is just behaviors I have to reprogram and redo.
That's right.
And it's insane how different everything started to be when I started to catch on to these things. Now if I meet someone or if I'm dating someone, I can tell right away, oh no, this person is they're not giving, or they're not
reciprocal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I needed to go through those things. I needed to be around those types of people for me to actually get to the point to where I can say, okay, I can see that now. Oh, that's a red flag. Oh, that's, now and it'll save you so much time and pain, when you catch it earlier.
Oh my gosh. Failure speeds learning. Failure speeds learning. Pain can produce peace. There's so many things, right? Like where if I'm going to go through the wormhole of this tragedy or this epic fail, bankrupt, foreclosed, repossessed, divorced, on welfare at 27.
Wow.
With 2 little kids.
Wow.
Epic fail. And then I go, oh, I need to do something different. DSD, do something different.
I like that.
I get that from Amy Porterfield. I love her. She's like, you need to DSD that. Do something different. And it was like, okay. Okay, because this didn't work. Yeah,
right.
Exactly right. And that's growth.
Growth.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing. Because I feel like some people don't want to grow. They want to stay in their box where they've always done what they always do. And it's like, I call it insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So it's like, oh, you're going to keep getting these types of things, keep running into the same type of people until you do something different.
Well, they blame. They're like, this person is doing this thing. And it's like, well, you have all the power in the world to change yourself. And you're actually, you're your own best thing here in this equation. This is where all the power, all the change sits with you. All the power to do that sits with us. It's just hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's just true. It's just hard because I'd rather be upset with somebody else and blame them and target them than look in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's hard to look in the mirror. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't want to, I mean, who wants to really sit there and be like, oh yeah, it's me? Because like, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good
Oh,
feeling.
I don't like that. It's one of the things is it's kind of like I've heard people say that when they got married. Well, okay, so for women, this is just in general, not trying to pigeonhole genders or roles, but in general, when women get married, they're like, oh, the love story has begun. Like, we're gonna just grow this great relationship. And when men get married, just typically, not always, they are like, oh, I did it. I've accomplished it.
Right.
I'm married, done, task done. And the women are like, oh, we're gonna have 30 years of growth and connection and task started, and there's this like, uh-oh.
You're like, wait a minute.
A lot of people come to relationships with, I didn't know it was gonna be this much work. I didn't know it was gonna be this hard. I didn't know so much was gonna be required of me. I thought it was gonna be more like plug and play.
Right.
I thought I was going to be married and be happy and have kids, and I had no idea what this whole ball of wax was. It's a lot for a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, it's already hard enough for people that are compatible and have a lot in common, or
Yeah, that's already hard enough.
Yeah. And imagine you just add two people that have nothing in common, have only expectations for each other, and don't really know anything about giving and how to make a relationship actually work, or giving what the other needs.
I have 2 words. Hot mess.
Hot mess.
That's a hot mess. That is a hot mess. I grew up in a dysfunctional family like we all did, and I spent my entire adult life up until I was probably 40 watching my older sister in a very abusive relationship, and my parents trying to put that back together over and over, when what they should have said to her is, get the F out.
For real.
Let us help you. Now, of course, when you have, when you're in a physically, emotionally, financially abusive relationship, you get lost under the waves of what's true anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because you're being abused. And it was like, I'm just going to take a pause here, but it was like being in the upside down. That was my source code on relationships, was crazy.
Right.
The upside down, withholding, neglectful, abusive, and that is somehow you need to keep just piecing that back together and not leaving for the kids and not standing up for yourself and not doing what needs to happen. And I was just off camera. I was like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, for real.
Because, what? And her adult children grew up and they're like, why did you leave us in that? And it's so complex, because I know why she did. She was financially dependent on him.
Yeah.
She was hooked in a way, mentally, emotionally, that she couldn't stand on her own 2 feet with 2 little kids, with somebody who's a drug addict and an abuser. I get that.
Right.
I get that. Like, you only have so many things you can do, and she didn't leave him because she didn't want to send her kids on visitation with an abusive drug addict. So she felt staying in the home
was the best thing to do.
She could protect them more from inside the home. Makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, holy heck.
I know.
We can create war zones in our families.
It's true. It's so true. And, I feel, because I've never been in a situation as dire as that, but it's like, to be in that, it's getting yourself out is probably the hardest thing you can do, especially if you're comfortable, you're being provided for in the way that you don't have to deal with anything else out, besides this issue. You don't have to deal with the other stuff.
You could probably handle him, right? She's a woman with children, so it's like, I want my kids to be okay.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's so much harder when there's kids in the picture. So it's like, I know wanting to do the right thing for the kids is the main objective, when it's like, you're also putting yourself on the back burner in the situation. So it's like, I know it's just, that is hard, it's just hard. Like, again,
I took us in a whole different direction. I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
No, but I'm glad that we did, because it shows, we were talking about toxic relationships, and sometimes people are in deep, so deep that they don't feel like they can get out. And, it's like, what do people do in those situations? And I think in those situations, it's really making tough decisions, because, I mean, the way I would look at it is, you can stay in this situation and have things go the way that they're going, and you can just kind of suffer, or you can do the scary route. Well, I mean, they're both scary routes, but but the scarier route is jumping into the unknown. You're gonna have to like work twice as hard to provide for you and the kids. Trying to figure everything out on your own, outside of the being provided for and already having everything taken care of and the safety of this. But it's like, at the same time, it's like,
no, it's true. I run into a couple of things. Can I just be like a teacher for a moment?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
If that's all right. I run into a couple of things, especially when I talk to men about staying in abusive relationships. And by the way, men get abused in relationships too. Whoa. Or they get severely neglected, like a woman that just won't show up for them physically or emotionally or financially. So I don't want to make guys the big bad wolf here at all. What I notice, though, is a lot of men that I talk to about this topic is they are rarely afraid of anybody, because men have physicality. Right. Like when I talk to men, they would tell me, I would say, have you ever been victimized? Have you ever been afraid for your life? Has there ever been a situation where you had little kids that you had to make something work with somebody, or your well-being and your safety, personal safety, would be cut off? And most men will tell me no, because they've never been victims of any kind. And so there's a different mentality, right? Like if it was as easy as just leaving, every woman would, if it was just that easy.
That's true.
There's this thing called the cycle of abuse. Let me see if I can show it to you.
Yeah.
You're like, how did we get down this rabbit hole?
No, I enjoy this. I think this is, this is another side that people need to see. So,
okay, in the cycle of abuse, this is probably one of the best infographics I can find on the fly, is that there's this, every abusive couple, or even if they're not physically abusive, if they're emotionally abusive with each other, they go through these different stages. All right. So they may be over on this one side in the tension building phase, where life's going along. They're just doing everyday things, dealing with the kids, and then something happens and everybody can feel the tension going up.
Right.
And then there's an explosion. And then there's a person that's like, oh, it wasn't that bad, either her or him or one of them. I'm sure we can work this out. And then they make up and return to the honeymoon phase for a period of time. And then the whole thing resets. Now, I don't really care if you guys fight, if anybody fights like this. What I care about is that there are safety issues, health issues, child issues. And there is this, hold on, let me see if I can get my thoughts around this. Probably need more caffeine this morning. But there's this belief that things are all going to be better. And what happens is this cycle just keeps firing off over and over to where the tension and the explosion can be far beyond what any person ever thought they would tolerate. Neglected, being abused, being assaulted, whatever. And that becomes the norm. Right. That so many people live like this.
Yes.
And when they go from explosion to denial to honeymoon, what they're doing is building a tolerance for this sort of relationship. The muscle to tolerate this, so that when explosion, denial, honeymoon happens, people would look at the reality of that and go, that's abusive. And they're like,
they're just used to it.
Because they've grown such a tolerance for this. And they know the honeymoon's coming. I even had clients that would provoke an explosion so they could quickly move back into honeymoon.
To the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really interesting, but and people don't understand there's a different way to live where this isn't how you solve problems.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like a Band-Aid almost. Yeah,
and it's a pattern. It's a pattern, and a lot of times this is just how people were raised as well. And I'm like, that is such a low bar.
It is.
I was my first marriage. I don't know if you should put this out there, but when I was like, we need to get divorced, my sisters and I all married and promptly got divorced within our 20s. He had a drug problem, and I was like, I'm not happy. This isn't good. And he's like, well, at least I don't hit you. Like, that was the bar. And I was going, is that the standard?
Right. I know.
Should I be glad?
Really? That is crazy.
At least I don't hit you.
Wow.
You should just be thankful. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like, oh, shit.
Yeah. But it's crazy because there really are a lot of people that are in relationships like that. I know quite a few today that people are still in those relationships, and they say things like that, like, oh, well, at least he doesn't cheat on me, but he's neglecting every single one of your emotions. He's not, he's not showing up for you at all,
And you're like, why are you with him? I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why right now. Okay. Because this is as true as the day is long. Here, hold on. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. You want to know why they're with him? Why? Because this shit, let me show it to you again, right here. You can edit out all my swearing.
No, I'll keep it in.
This shit is addictive. This is addictive.
Yes. This
is as exhilarating and adrenaline producing and intense.
Yes.
A lot of other substances.
Yeah.
So they swap intensity for intimacy. They go for intensity rather than safe connection and intimacy.
Wow.
They get addicted.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was the next thing I was going to mention. I know people that they really get, like you said, addicted to that. And when they get into healthy relationships, they don't even, it's boring. They don't know how to even.
I like drama and trauma. If I were going to be them for a minute, my nervous system likes that hit.
Yeah. And, for the longest time, I didn't understand that. Like, I would get with some of these women and I'm treating them well. And, I think it's healthy. And then it'd be like, they'd start things so that we would fight, so that we would get to the point where we make up. And they would just do that. I'm like, what is this? Like, but it didn't dawn to me that some people are really addicted to those types of relationships. I read something about they're just as addicting, like you said, as a drug, as a dopamine hit that you get from certain drugs or adrenaline,
stress hormones.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, I think that intensity equals love. And then when you're in a relationship that's not high conflict and not really, sketchy, you're like, oh, well, we don't have all those intense emotions and feelings with each other, so that must not be love. But I'll tell you what, I have my mentor, Lori Jean Glass, LoveToPivot.com. That's her work. They're an entire relationship company, LoveToPivot.com. She says, this is what people do. They ride something called the crazy train together. They get on the crazy train, whatever it is. He's looking at another woman. She's overspending. He's withholding affection, or she's withholding affection, or he lied, or she lied. And then it just sets this cycle off of conflict and then the honeymoon phase. She calls it the crazy train, and she teaches people how to deboard the crazy train. Get off. Get off. I love her work on circle boundaries. We should talk about that sometime, because it's a fantastic way to manage relationships, and it's all based on a hierarchy of trust.
See, I like that. I think we should definitely talk about that, because I think trust is a huge, I think that's one of the main pillars of a relationship. If you don't have trust, What do you
There you
have?
go. It's not based on love. I'll show it to you. Her system is not based on love. You can very much love somebody and know, in all honesty, you can't really trust them.
Mm-hmm.
She has a hierarchy, like I said. Hold on, I have to find this. She calls this the dimmer switch for relationships, which I love. Okay, let me share my screen with you here. I didn't know we were going to go this way, but I'm glad we did, because
I am too.
this is the best boundary system. Literally, better than Boundary Boss. Sorry, I know that's a name out there right now. Better than all of them. This boundary system right here. I think this bar will float down here in a minute. One side. Okay, there we go. She says there are 5 categories for setting boundaries with people. And
Okay.
you have to decide based on a trust hierarchy where people are. And that's based on facts, not on feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are unsafe for me emotionally, physically, financially, they go into outer, which is you have no contact with them for a period of time while you sort through what this is.
Right.
And then there's people that are just acquaintances. These are people like maybe the barista at Starbucks, that neighbor that you only see every now and then, and you're just cordial with them. They don't need to be BFFs. You don't need to over disclose your life. You don't put a lot of energy there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the category in the middle called semi. And these are people that you have a shared interest with.
Okay.
So people in your family, friends, relatives, coworkers, a boss, but you don't necessarily have high unconditional love or reciprocal trust.
Right.
These are people that are really great, but they're not like your soul deep. Like the Celtics have this word for relationships of high mutuality called the Anam Cara. It's like the deepest relationship, like a soul friend is what that means.
Okay.
That's more the good, right here, the good circle.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that I have high reciprocity with. We're very mutual. They help me, I help them. They trust me, I trust them. We have, like if there's a problem, I'm on their doorstep or they're on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Have a problem, we can get back to good. And so good is this high trust area.
Okay.
And this is where my time, my resources, my priorities, my allegiance, my my devotion goes to right here to these folks. But you don't get to just be in my good.
Right.
There's high trust and reciprocal. If we're not reciprocal, then I could help you all day long, like you said, in your early relationships. But if it doesn't flow both ways, like ride or die type folk, then they're semi-acquaintance or out.
Exactly. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
and
that.
then the inner is like unconditional. This is like God and your dog.
Right.
God and your dog. Like this is it. And it's important, super important, because we all need, a power greater than ourselves, or, something that we know will always be there for us no matter what, doesn't judge us. Not everybody has that, but it's super important.
Absolutely. I like that. I love that. Because, I just know so many people that are in relationships and they don't trust each other. I'm like, what is the point? I feel like relationships are supposed to be safe places where you're both able to give to each other and you can live in harmony. And I mean, no one's perfect. You're going to have disagreements and stuff like that. But when you have a relationship like that where you have trust of each other, that's beautiful, but not everybody has
He's
that.
got your back. She or he has your back. And if you hurt me, you've hurt both of us.
Exactly.
Like right there.
Exactly.
It's just unspoken. Like, I got you.
Yes.
You got me. That's a beautiful thing to have.
Exactly. I think a lot of people would be a lot happier, really a lot happier, more blissful if they had someone like that in their lives, because a lot of times people are just they're just very surface level with their relationships, or people might have been hurt in the past and now they don't know how to open up to anyone. And it's all about discernment. Is learning, like that chart is perfect. There's not, everybody doesn't belong in your circle. That's one thing not everyone is your friend. Not everyone who says they love you doesn't really love you.
Likes you. Not everybody's trying to be, not everybody's a good person like you are.
Right.
They're not. They're sometimes trying to rip you off. They're sometimes trying to use you, abuse you. I didn't like that when I found that out in life. My husband was like, you're a little naive. And I'm like, but I love everybody and I want to be friends with everybody and I want to do good in this world. Why wouldn't other people? He's like,
I know.
No. Where do you live? Like, you're like a little girl. Like,
right.
Can I all be friends? And he's like, yeah, no. That's not how it works.
Hey,
I wish it did.
I know. I really wish it did too. I had to learn it the hard way. I was, my dad is a pastor. Both my parents are pastors, and so I came from this little small town in Florida. And when I came out to California, you have this expectation, like you just said. You think everyone else has your best interests at heart, just like you have everyone else's best interests at heart. But it's just not the case. I've been screwed over, lied to, stolen from, all these types of different things.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, I thought,
I'm a child of God. I'm going to do good things. I'm going to advance the kingdom. I'm going to serve. I'm going to give. I'm going to love. And people are like, eh.
Yep.
I know. This is where circle boundaries is good for me and you, because I used to trust everybody.
Yeah, same. And I learned, like, everyone that says they're your friend, they're just really not your friend. A lot of times people are just trying to see what they can get out of you. A lot of times, they see that you're kind, so they want to, just take advantage, and they see you're a kind person. So, and they know you're not, they'll do this for me if this happens, or, I can depend on them for this, but then whenever you need them, they're nowhere to be found.
Right,
so,
right.
I had another pretty interesting question. So when relationships are healthy, sometimes they end up turning toxic. What do you think starts relationships from that healthy part of where they are to slowly? Because sometimes people, I feel like they just seem like, what happened? We were so happy, we were so healthy, we were so like reciprocal. What happened? When did the landslide happen?
Yeah.
When do you think when do you think it starts to happen?
I think 2 words. One, when neglect is in place. I lit first one. When I'm neglecting my primary relationship, then you can bet it's like a house plant. If you have a plant and you don't water it, that's literally it's neglect.
Right.
And that happens sometimes, usually by accident. I'm just so busy, I don't notice what's happening with my partner, myself, our family, because I'm out there trying to make money or trying to follow my dreams or take care of my children or keep the family, keep the wolf away from the door of safety and finances. I think that, so accidental neglect. But then I think we also have these things in us. Pivot, the lovetopivot.com that I shared with you, they call these things survival patterns. They're things that we learned early in life to do to survive difficulties.
Right.
And so let's say somebody goes through a very stressful episode in life, or they have an important person in their life that dies. Some people will maybe go to church or connect with God or go to counseling. Other people will go to a bottle or an affair or overspending or overeating. So both of those categories are survival patterns.
Right.
So one, I'm going to go find a helper, I'm going to get support, I'm going to process through it. The other one is, I don't want to feel it. So I'm going to invoke my survival patterns that I've learned over life work well. Right? And so when somebody is like, when you listen to people who are coming out of addiction, one of the things in their recovery is having to go back and deal with all of the events, the feelings, the emotions, and the realities of why they numbed out in the first place.
Right.
So they numb themselves with a substance or a behavior or a choice. And now as they try to reclaim their life, it stopped way back here when, best friend died or layoff or rejection or whatever, and they did this instead of deal with it.
Right.
So there's this whole coming back to oneself. And sometimes, Jalen, it was as early as like 9 or 10 years old when they were abused, and they learned in the moment, if I do this pattern, I don't have to feel. That's right.
Wow.
I would say neglect or unhealthy, ineffective survival patterns can turn a relationship toxic.
I 1000% agree with that, because a lot of times when people are coming to me for advice, when it's, there's something that their partner is doing, I'm like, wow, that sounds like something a child would do, or that sounds like something maybe a teenager would do. And then they'll start to explain, oh, well, he didn't have his parents, or his parents were abusive, and this happened. He grew up in this type of household.
I get that. And in an adult life, is that serving you?
Exactly. And so that right there, I always, one thing I learned is I can't always give people, I can't fix people, but I can lead them to the right answer.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll kind of try and guide people to look at it in that sense. Sometimes I have to just flat out say it, but I try to get them to say it out loud themselves, and then once they
connect the dots.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so usually when they hear themselves say, I'm like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have to deal with that. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't. And the fact that you've been dealing with this for 10 years, this is only going to be detrimental for you in the long run. So you got to either address it and see if they're going to actually meet you halfway and work on it. Mm-hmm. And if you bring it up to them and they, oh, well, I don't know if they're going to get upset with me. Well, do you want to keep going along this way? Like, what kind of life is this?
Yeah, you're just going to loop.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was in one of those loops before. I didn't understand it, but I was in one of those loops. And when I realized, how it made me feel, it was like, it drained my soul. It wasn't exhilarating for me. It was like, this is I want off this train.
It's a toxic cycle. It's so interesting. I had a couple I worked with, and he was in a pattern of explosion and withholding and criticism and jealousy, like normal human stuff, right? And his wife said that she's like, I don't want to work on any of this because this is him. And this was also him in the relationship before me. Wow. And I was like, interesting, because as people, we really do have patterns. We really do. Now, do I think she should have just kind of stayed with it and learned her part so as to increase her emotional intelligence so that she wasn't, I don't want to say as triggering, because as people, we need to be able to manage ourselves no matter how much we get triggered by somebody else.
Yes.
I can't just go out in the world and try to get people to stop triggering me, because at the end of the day, my trigger's my responsibility.
Right.
So, but I thought it was interesting when she said, this is his pattern, this is exactly what he did with his ex. And it's kind of like, all right, point well taken. This is a pattern he has established as ways of relating, I think, from unhealed parts of himself, right? And when you hear his story, it all kind of lines up. So it's big. People do this stuff every day. And I don't care if people drink a little or they shop a lot or overindulge in food. I don't care. What I do care, though, is if it messes up your relationships and your family, then it's on you to manage it, unless you want to wash, rinse, repeat this cycle over and over. And then also hand it down to your children.
That's the big thing. That's the big thing. Because a lot of people don't realize, kids are like sponges. So they absorb everything.
You're marinating them in unhealthy. And then you taught them, this is what love looks like. Make sure you go out and look for it or replicate it.
Right.
What love looks like.
Right. That's so true. And that's something that I feel like is very important, because, I don't have any kids yet. But when I do, I want to be with someone that, for one, I truly trust and love. And I want it to be a really healthy environment. I want them to see what actual love is, so they don't have to think that they have to go out here and try to replicate it in a negative way or try to find manipulation tactics in order to get it. They're going to look for partners that that they see what their mother and father.
Like attracts like. Look, my whatever level of broken I am is going to seek and find that in somebody else.
Yes.
We attract to the opposite of temperament and emotions, but the exact mirror of brokenness.
Yes.
Because if I'm in my severely broken state, I'm going to resonate most comfortably with people that have that same sort of frequency.
Right.
Because it's going to feel familiar. It's going to feel familiar. But my challenge would be, does it have merit? Do they, I don't care if it's familiar, because we can all go with what's familiar. But if it's, unhealthy, unsafe, withholding, all those things, is this how you really want to portray love to your family? And I get that we all kind of are creatures of habit, right? Like I go with, anyway, I could bunny trail on that, but I like I like to disrupt patterns with people and say, okay, you've done, like you said, and it's been said for a long time, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is insanity. So then why do you think we do that? Because we do that.
Yeah, I think, I just feel like we just feel, we want to feel familiarity. And it's like, because sometimes I'll catch myself falling into habits that I've always done, or something that brings me comfort, And so when you just go back to doing the same thing you've always been doing, it feels safe. It feels like home. It feels like you're good right here. But, I think that's why we do it. But I think the only way to stop that is to realize, I really tell people, reflecting and really looking back on your life or seeing where you are, if you're trying to be here, well, what steps are you doing to get there? And if you're doing these same habits and you're still where you are right now, then those habits that you're doing is keeping you here.
Yeah, it's baking the same cake from that recipe over and over. You want to bake that?
You're trying to bake a carrot cake, but you got the stuff for a red velvet cake. You can't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we do it out of comfort and safety and the feeling that we're good, and we want doing the same habits makes you feel like. It just makes you feel safe. It just makes you.
I think so. I think we all have kind of like our tires sort of find the grooves in the road. We have these like neural pathways in our brains that are the most comfortable that we fall into, because to actually blaze a new trail in your brain takes a lot more energy.
Yeah.
A lot more energy. It's like, if I know I need to work out, and I can mentalize that all day long, but actually get in and saying I need to work out. I'm gonna try this workout program. I'm gonna buy these type of shoes. I'm gonna join a gym. I'm gonna hire a trainer. That's all one thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is when I have to get myself out of bed at 7 a.m., face the cold, deal with grogginess, and put my feet on the pavement or the treadmill or meet the trainer. Those are two very different things, because I can use logic on the one side, but actual willpower and activation energy to do totally different things. So we are very drawn to what's familiar, what's the status quo, if you will.
Yes. And something you said earlier that really stood out was when you said pattern disruption, because if the only way to break a pattern is to do something different than what you've always done. And so I know one thing that helped me a lot was affirmations. Like I would actually go to sleep listening to these affirmations and these sound healing type of things.
Yeah.
And it really, I actually still listen to them every night.
It like rewires you in like a subconscious level.
Yeah, on a subconscious level. It really and I don't know, I always thought it was like weird and like, woo, kind of crazy, but I started doing it, I'd say like a year and a half ago. And ever since I still listen to them every night, or mostly every night. And I move differently in the morning. I move different throughout the day. I might have one for confidence, or for focus, or affirmations for self-worth, or just different things. There's all different types you can listen to, and people think I'm crazy. And, when I start mentioning this to the people, and they're like, "Well, I don't know. I feel like you're just different. There's something you seem. I don't know."
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. But I'll tell them. I'll literally send them links for these YouTube. I mean, it's on YouTube. You can get them from almost anywhere.
I do the Breathe app, BRETHE, the Breathe app, and I have a favorite. I'm just going to give him a plug. He's a British hypnotherapist named Glenn Harold.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have agreed that he is in a throuple with us.
Really?
Glenn, the hypnotherapist, every night, he's like right on my bedside table telling me to let it go and release and accept and believe in myself. And so we have a deal now where it's like, I need to go talk to Glenn.
That's awesome.
He's like guiding. It's this guided visualization toward peace, release, acceptance, and also success, right? And higher consciousness and faith, focus. Yeah, like you're saying. I love that. I love that. It's
I do too.
Why wouldn't you want to be the best version of yourself?
Because if you're the best version of yourself, you're gonna attract those types of people. You're gonna attract the people. Whatever it is that you want to do in life, whatever goals you're trying to hit, you just becoming better in resonating and vibrating at those high frequencies, you're gonna just attract those like-minded types of people and opportunities into your life. So why wouldn't you want that?
That's right. Agreed.
I got one more.
This is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. I have one final question for you. What would be your best relationship advice for the viewers?
Okay, who are we talking to? Millennials?
Millennials. What's the under millennials? Gen Z.
Gen Z. I have kids in both those generations.
Wow. So. The best relationship advice you can think of that you would share.
Okay, you get me on the spot here, so you help me while I'm disconnect from your devices sometimes. Go analog with each other. A lot of times the way to interrupt that pattern that we were talking about, like a lot of couples fight and bicker and are under stress at home, but when they go away on vacation, it's fun and they can sleep longer and have more couple time and change up their surroundings. So I would say try to bring that vacation mindset, whatever it is you're doing that is fun when you're outside of your bubble, your home work life, to replicate that in your coupleship. And to do that, you probably have to get off your devices, set some boundaries with kids and friends and employers, and really prioritize that other person. So one of the things is one of your greatest financial investments or downfalls in your life, Jalen, in my life, is my marriage.
Wow.
The greatest financial investment or downfall is my marriage.
Wow.
And because there's so many ways that a healthy relationship will cause you to flourish financially. Okay, so you're going to have a shared interest in partnership, building a shared dream financially. You're going to be healthy, so you're going to have less sick days, less drain on your finances. You're going to have somebody that is building something together with you. Yeah. But if you don't have a healthy relationship, the very most obvious way is if you get divorced, you men especially have to give half of everything you've been working on to that woman, and then monthly support after that. And so I could go on, but your greatest financial investment is really your marriage, because from that, everything else grows. Yes. And ultimately, when you come into your marriage, everything in your marriage grows from you. So you and your marriage or long-term relationship, it doesn't have to be married. I know y'all don't get married as much anymore, You millennials are like, I'm 35, maybe I'll get married. I'm 40, maybe I'll have a kid. Great. In my generation, we were all like, I just got out of high school. Let's have 5 kids. Like, it's stupid. But I would say that if you can replicate whatever the bubble is that you get into when you go away together, if you can find a way to do that at home and prioritize that, and part of that's going to be getting off your devices and really face-to-facing with each other.
Tune in.
Yeah. And then the second thing is remembering that your greatest financial investment is your primary relationship, because everything else grows from there.
Yes.
And if you don't have a primary relationship, that is also okay, because you are your own best thing to grow your life.
Right.
Don't even get me started on the 4 things every woman needs from a man. I would love to talk about that sometime, and how men be over here building that for themselves before they show up to their partner.
So let's make that our part 2 then. We'll do our part 2 will be the 4 things a woman needs from a man. That's right, and how to give it to her. Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
Yeah.
This has been an awesome episode. Like, I already knew it was going to be good,
but we had fun. We'll do it again.
We'll do it again. All right.
We'll do Saturdays with Jalen and Cindy.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do it.
Yeah, love it. Okay.
All right, sounds good. Do you have a link for your book or anything, or? Well,
people can go to cindyfinch.com and just go there. Cindyfinch.com.
Cindyfinch.com.
Yeah, I just started a new email series on pro tips to managing toxic people. So if people sign up for my newsletter, they're going to get 6 days in a row of tools to manage toxic relationships.
Okay.
So the feedback I'm getting is that it's a very specific and helpful. So we'll see.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. All right. I'll put that information down.
Good. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll do another one soon. And everyone watching, thank you guys for checking this out. We're going to have Cindy's book information, all that stuff down below. This is all about having better relationships, really being able to tune in and realize that, toxic is not the way for relationships. And so if you are able to fix the toxic relationships or remove them, that's going to be the best thing for you guys. We're really trying to have healthy relationships and love and trust, and that's really what should be the foundation for good relationships. So we got more coming your way. Thank you guys for watching, and stay elevated.
All right, love it.